Hey knitters, welcome to episode 153 of the Knitty McPurly podcast. I'm your host, Devin Ventry. You can find me at KnittyMcPurly.com. I am Knitty McPurly on Instagram, and if you want to email me, I'm Devin at KnittyMcPurly.com. I linked all that stuff below in case you forget. Also, subscribe, thumbs up, please, if you don't mind. How are you doing? Happy Sunday once again. It's a beautiful day. It has been an amazing week. Beginning of the week was like hot and gross and yucky, but now it's like 40 degrees and just perfect. So this morning I grabbed my I Love New York cup. Thanks, Christy. And I was thinking I need to keep a spreadsheet of what cup I used when so that I make sure that I don't overdo any one cup, because sometimes I just grab what's in the front in the cupboard. And I'm still drinking my coffee this morning. I'm kind of on the edge of I've had enough coffee, but I'm still drinking it. So I heart New York. It is perfect knitting weather out there. It's like 40 degrees. All I want to do is knit. Sadly, I have these people who live in my house who insist on being fed and, the house being clean and super boring stuff like that. So that has to happen too. But hopefully today I will get some knitting in. I don't know. It's looking kind of busy right now. Okay, progress and shop news. The advent calendars are shipping tomorrow. You guys, I have them all packed up. They are completely ready to go, and they will go to either UPS or the post office, depending. Most of them are shipping UPS, but maybe a fifth of them are going USPS. So those will go out tomorrow. You should get your shipping email tomorrow so that you can track your package and watch it as it comes your way. They should arrive by the end of next week, but I wanted to tell you and show you, look how pretty this is. This is the little card that comes in there. And on the back of the card is a QR code for downloading your patterns. And it has the schedule for all of the clues/ornaments. Each ornament is its own clue. So if you get your advent calendar and you go to download your patterns and you get an error message, you're just too early. So I am gonna try my best to get the patterns up as soon as possible. Most of them are totally finalized, but I have a couple that I am still finalizing. So I promise they will be up by Monday, November 22nd. But I do hope to be a little bit early. I tend to be an early person, so I do think I'll be able to get them up before that. But if you get your advent calendar and you go to download it and it says error, don't worry, you're just a little early. Come back in another day or two and they should be there definitely by Monday the 22nd. That is the promised day, but I may have them in there a little earlier. Same with people who did not buy an advent calendar. If you want to join in on the Advent Knit Along, I will have that pattern up on Monday, November 22nd, but maybe a few days earlier. If you are not subscribed to my newsletter, go ahead and subscribe. It's a pop-up that comes up when you go to my website, and you can put in your email address and then you'll get the newsletter. There's also a little semicircle hang down thing. Now, if you have a pop-up blocker, you're not gonna see those things, and I can't sign you up. So I don't know how to do it if you have a pop-up blocker. I don't blame you. Personally, ads on the internet drive me crazy. But this is one of those instances where if you want the newsletter, you should just disable the pop-up blocker, sign up, and then re-enable it. That's probably the best thing to do. If you want to get the newsletter, and then on Friday, I will send out a newsletter talking about those patterns and also about my upcoming Black Friday sale. That is coming too. Okay. Another thing I wanted to mention is that in each clue/ornament, so there are 9 clues for the Advent Knit Along, and each one is its own ornament. At the end, it says, click here to view the finished ornament, because I kind of wanted it to be a surprise while you're knitting it a little bit. Some of them do have photo tutorials because you need that. It's a toy/ornament. You need a tutorial sometimes to get through it. But if you want to see the finished one, and some of them have videos, like the first couple especially have tutorial videos, and it's just a little bit of a spoiler, but there's nothing to be done. So, but anyway, if you work ahead in the Advent calendar knit along and you want to see the finished ornament, though that link will not work. It only starts working on the first day of that clue. Is that a good idea? I don't know. Maybe I should make them all go up on December 1st or sooner. I don't know. But because I know some people do want to work ahead because they want to make these ornaments as Christmas presents. One other thing I wanted to mention is you will notice that most of the clues span more than one day because they use more than one color. But clue number 9 only uses one color of yarn. So the reason I did that for that last clue is because I wanted that to be the ornament you could make over and over and over again. I think I've made like 9 of them thus far, and it's great for scraps. So after I had all of this done, like yarn dyed, boxes labeled, packed, it is a gigantic process to do all of these things. My tech editor had a great suggestion. It was just too late for it. She said, you know, that last ornament that you want to be the one that people can use their scraps for, wouldn't it be better to put that as the first ornament? And I was like, that's a good idea. It's too late, but that's a good idea. So just kind of know if you get an Advent calendar or if you're just joining in on the knit along, if you want to look at that last clue earlier, if you wanted to make it as gifts, if you wanted to get started on it earlier than on Christmas Day, go ahead, you can do that. You know, the clues are set up to work you through Advent and everything is geared toward that, but it is your calendar and you can do whatever you want with it. So if you want to knit them all early and give them as presents, whatever, you can absolutely do that. I know I'm going to be giving a lot of that 9th ornament as gifts because it's great. I love it. I've made a lot and I've used up almost all of the scraps that I had from the other ornaments and even other yarn, like I'm using other yarn to make it. So does that help? Does that just to put that in your mind that it's possible if you wanted to work them out of order, that last one, if you wanted to pull that one out earlier than the 25th, or you can just do it on the 25th. Like if Christmas Day is a day where you'll have time to sit and knit, you can knock out one of these puppies in an hour. Like it's just great. It's so fun and great. And using scraps makes it so interesting because of all the different color combinations. I cannot wait to show you all of mine. It's going to be after Christmas. I'm not sure what day Christmas is this year, but I can't wait to show you my ornaments as we go along. It's going to be so, so fun. Okay, the next thing that I want to do personally is knit all of these in super bulky because right now they're little ornaments because they're knit in DK, but I want this to be a toy pattern that you could size based on the different yarn, and a lot of these would look amazing in super bulky as toys. So that's going to be my next project. Looking forward to that. As I also already just hinted, I'm working on the Black Friday sale from Knitty McPurly because that is so much fun. I love Black Friday sales. There are so many things that my husband and I are like, oh, should we get this? Should we do this? Oh, wait for Black Friday. And I love that a lot of businesses are extending the sale. So it's not just the one day because that generates a rush and it's just so chaotic. So I plan on my Black Friday sale running from the Sunday before Thanksgiving, which is I think the 19th, through the Sunday after Thanksgiving, which is the 25th, I think. So 19th through the 25th, that whole week, I will have new releases and restocks and sales and discount codes. It's gonna be fun. So if you have any Knitty McPurly fun stuff in your mind for holiday gifts, for a knitting friend, or for your husband to get for you, then keep an eye out for that sale that week. It's going to be great. And I will have it out in the newsletter. I will definitely tell you about it before it happens. So it won't be like, oh no, I missed it. What happened? Oh, Charlotte found her knitting. Hold on. You found it? Oh, by the way, I am wearing my Williamsburg cowl today. I wore this to Mass this morning because I've been wearing a lot of my sweaters, but I wanted to start wearing some of my cowls. Okay, so Charlotte's still wearing the crown. She sleeps in it and wears it every minute of every day. So hold this up so we can see.
Wait, I want to just do one more row.
Oh, okay.
Okay, never mind.
This yarn has a knot in it. Let's see if we can undo that. Because if you knit with a knot, then you'll have a knot in your knitting.
I just sprinted.
That's like a tongue twister. If you knit with a knot, you'll have a knot in your knitting. Okay, wait. What happened here? Did I tie
rubber
a new
baby
knot?
buggy bumpers?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Show us.
So, this is it.
Yeah. So Charlotte, you remember, what did you call it? A never-ending line?
Yes, but it occurred to me that it would end.
It would end and did. Yeah. So here we have this. This I don't even think is super bulky. This is bigger than super bulky because this is made with St. Petersburg. Super bulky. I will link this pattern down below because people kept asking me about it. Do not stab thyself in thine eye. Good job, Char.
Can I show me knitting?
Yes. So you're gonna have to hold it. Oh, here.
I'm aware.
I'll tilt it down a little bit. Okay, go ahead.
This is the wrong hand.
Okay, that's okay. Take your time.
First, I'm gonna knit slow for you guys. Okay. I'm gonna knit slow for you guys.
Where's there it is.
I know. I'm knitting slow for you, okay?
Yes, in case you need like a tutorial.
And now I'm gonna knit fast.
It is hard to knit with those giant needles. I'm impressed you can do that so fast.
I like big better than small because I can finish so longer. I mean shorter. Ooh, my eyes.
All right, you gonna say goodbye?
Yeah, bye.
Bye. Okay, so there was Charlotte. She got a little bit of that done, and she said earlier she wanted to be on the podcast, but she couldn't find her knitting. So she found it, and it merited a run-in for sure. Anyway, this is my Williamsburg cowl. This is some yarn from Kim Dyes Yarn, who is a yarn dyer who lives not far from me. And this is a cowl that I designed a couple of years ago, and oh, it smells good. I really like it. It's got cables and baubles, and it's just really fun. I have this in 2 colors. I also have a yellow one because I did a kit a couple of years ago. But yeah, I've been trying to wear more cowls and shawls because I have a lot of them. And I tend to focus on sweaters because I love sweaters so much, but I have a lot of good cowls and shawls. So I'll be wearing those more. Now, I've been working on my Go Lightly sweater, but like I said, you know, I've been doing a lot of ornaments, so I have not made much progress. So it's just, you know, a little bit more below the armhole. I'm knitting a Go Lightly sweater in the 2nd size in the Fontaine colorway with Dresden DK. So it ends up being very nubbly. It's just really cool. Really, really fun. Yeah, so hopefully I will get some time to work on that, but I haven't had much time. I worked on it a little bit yesterday and when Charlotte was at piano lessons. Other than that, I don't think I've done it all week. So, you know, I got a couple more rows in, but I'm excited to wear that this winter. So I really want to get it done. How is the Audrey knit along going? People have been emailing me their progress pictures. I have seen some on Instagram, although every single time I pick up my phone to go, like, let's say, look at the Instagram progress, every single time I pick up my phone to do a thing, I am distracted by another thing. Every time, like without fail. So I meant to go look at Instagram to see the progress, but Gigi had sent me all of these adorable baby/puppy memes. And cute babies and cute puppies are the best part of the internet, aren't they? Like, we just sit around and laugh at how adorable they are. Like, that is why the internet should exist. Any bad stuff that happens on the internet should just go away, and it should all be cute babies and cute puppies. So anyway, the Audrey progress that I have seen, they look amazing. I love the colors you guys are using. You know, I am not a person who wears orange very well. I love orange, and my husband's favorite color is orange. But some of you out there have beautiful olive skin, and you just have a total fall color palette going on, and you look amazing in Roxette. And I've seen some Roxette Audreys, and they're just going to be amazing on you and your beautiful fall color palette. I was thinking about ending the Audrey Knit Along on that Sunday. I thought I just said Sunday the 25th was, I don't have a calendar in front of me. I don't know if it's the 25th or the 26th, but the Sunday after Thanksgiving. Is that enough time? I feel like it is. That gives you like 3 more weeks with a total of what, like 6 weeks, 5 or 6 weeks. So let me know if you think that's a good time to end the knit along, because then we can start with our Advent calendar knit along ornaments. Knitting is so great. Isn't it so great? Aren't you glad that we are knitters and that we get to work on these fun projects? Life is good, isn't it? Okay, so let me know what you think about that date to end the Audrey Knit Along. Okay, topic of the week. Last week, I was finishing up my talk about double-pointed needles, or DPNs, and we talked about Egyptian knitting and the early historical knitting that has been found, and how they used double-pointed needles, or sometimes a long needle with a hook on one end and straight on the other end, and they worked around as for double-pointed needles. It was the same, it's just that one end had a hook. So what's interesting is that knitting really came full circle, if you will pardon the pun, because early knitting was mainly done on double-pointed needles, and then for a long time, flat knitting took over. And now we're kind of back to knitting in the round. Now, I have noticed that some knitting purists feel that seams are very important to a garment. They'll say things like seams add structure and they cause your garment to just be better than a seamless garment, a seamless sweater, for example. That's pretty much what I'm thinking of as a sweater. But some people, critics of those purists, would say that the reason that double-pointed needles, knitting in the round, that was popular like 1,000 years ago, the reason that we moved to more flat knitting is not because it is better, but because it is easier to depict in a pattern. It's easier to chart it that way, which is interesting because it kind of goes in the face of the purists who are pro-seam. I am anti-seam. I get it. I understand the structure thing. It's old school, but I think seamless knitting is older school. It predates these seamed garments. So I came across on the internet from the V&A Museum, the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. Hello, my England watchers. I've actually been to the V&A, and it's amazing. Like, I love a good museum. I don't remember looking at the knitting when I was there back in the late 90s, but they had this whole history of hand knitting on the V&A website. And I thought, since we talked about kind of earlier knitting last week, I would move it up to the, I guess you'd call it like Middle Ages, like the 1500s-ish. And this is what it said on that website. So, knitting spread to Europe around the 1500s. I think that they probably did it before then, but maybe it became more prevalent. So this is what it says on the V&A website. We know from archaeological finds in medieval cities and surviving tax lists that the use of knitted goods spread in Europe from the 14th century. In England, the manufacture, so that would be the 1300s is the 14th century, right? Yeah. In England, the manufacture of knitted caps was sufficiently important to merit control by Parliament. The Cappers Act of 1571 stated that every person above the age of 6, except for maids, ladies, gentlewomen, noble personages, and every lord, knight, and gentleman of 20 marks land. So the regular people, okay? Not the fancy people, but the regular people. In England, on Sundays and holidays, should wear, except when traveling, a cap of wool knit, thicked and dressed in England, made within this realm, and only dressed and finished by some of the trade of cappers, upon pain to forfeit for every day of not wearing 3 shillings 4 pence. So regular people had to wear a knitted hat made in England by, made in their own country every Sunday. And if you didn't wear it, you were going to get fined. This act helped sustain the production of caps in England, you don't say, thereby protecting the livelihood of their makers. That's interesting, isn't it? We want this trade to do well, so we're going to insist that you use it. The museum holds a number of 16th century knitted caps, and here is one from the V&A that were discovered following building works in a house in Worship Street in the City of London. The location of the finds, combined with the fact that the caps are knitted, suggests that these caps were made for the middle class. Many such caps were trimmed with ribbons to imitate more expensive silk versions. The size of this cap suggests that it may have belonged to a young boy. It's closely knitted in wool and was probably once red, possibly dyed in madder, a fashionable color of the time. These caps were generally constructed in one piece in the round, the method still used for knitting berets today. I don't like it. I think it's kind of ugly. But, things that are dyed naturally, they do fade over time. And this style kind of makes sense that this would be a 16th century style that the regular people would wear. But it's interesting that upon pain of a fine, you had to wear a knitted cap on Sundays. So everybody had to own one, basically. Didn't have to own more than one, just regular people. Not the nobility, probably because they wore fancier hats. That would be my guess. But isn't that interesting? Parliament says you gotta wear one, and that sustained it. Interesting. Okay, moving on to the comments. You guys, if you are watching this episode and you missed the last episode, go back and watch that one. That one I had 50 comments, which is a lot. I mean, I chose, I think, 8 to read to you, but there were so many good comments. Many of you talked about how amazing Sherry's story was, and it really, really was. Sherry can tell a really good story. She's just great at it. And I feel like she sent me another one too. So it's gone in the queue because right now I have a queue, which is wonderful. But anyway, let me go ahead and read you the comments that I picked out. Allison Foster says, I am so excited about my advent calendar. Knowing Gigi packed it up for me makes it a little more special. I love that the advent has a swatch that will become a mug rug. Yes, it's a little square / rectangle. I think it's just small, but I use mine as a coaster on my desk downstairs. So she says, Sherry's story was so warm and touching. How awesome to know that we can put our all into the great hands that knit us together. We are truly blessed. Thank you, Devin, for another great podcast. Have a wonderful week. Thank you so much, Allison. Olia Mikesh said, wow, that story, absolutely beautiful and so true. She should write a book. Sherry, we all think you should write a book. You are a very, very talented writer and you should write. Lori Nolan said, I loved your podcast today and the story was so good. Thank you for sharing. I love so much that you have created a space where we can share our knitting and our faith. And that was so nice. That really touched my heart because when I joined the knitting community back in 2016, I had no intention of sharing my faith because I don't know, that just wasn't what you did back in 2016. Like if you had a business, which is what I wanted, then it was just going to be about knitting. But you know, kind of the upside to the knitting community losing its mind is that we all recognize that we can talk about whatever we want and we can be whoever we want. So it's a blessing that has resulted from that insanity. So thank you so much, Lori. I really appreciate you saying that. Elaine Enstone from the UK says, a wonderful story and so true. I am sure that if Sherry visited the UK now, she would find plenty of yarn shops. Generally, we use the word needles, but I have heard them called pins. Love the color of the November yarn. Now that's interesting that Elaine said that, because another commenter said, who is from the UK, said that she too can't find any yarn shops. So she and Elaine must just live in different parts of England. But I was at Oxford back in the late 90s, and I don't remember, I mean, I wasn't interested in knitting at the time. I didn't knit. I don't remember there being a store in Oxford, but now I actually follow one on Instagram. There is one in Oxford called, I think, the Oxford Yarn Store, and I want to go back just to see that. But I wonder how many of these, you know, smaller villages and cities now have yarn stores that didn't before. So Beautiful says, would you ever consider designing a shawl with the same symbols as your Benedicta sweater? I would love to use the symbols in a prayer shawl for a friend of mine who just lost her son. Oh my gosh, son, that just sounds so terrible. And her daughter-in-law who lost her husband. I think that they would be very knit-worthy. Now, I wouldn't expect you to jump in and do it immediately. I would have to come up with something on my own. But for future reference, I think it would be a wonderful thing. Also, I was watching another podcaster this morning, and she said a viewer was using her little saint charms as stitch markers and using them for prayer and meditation as she knit. And she thought it was a lovely idea and was also going to do that. I think I will do that too, and then give them the charms with the shawl. If you're not familiar with the little saints, there are these tiny little, like, not squishy, but kind of soft saints, and they come on a little hook, and you can put them on keys or whatever, but they would make great stitch markers, like progress keepers, because they're very light. You can get them on Amazon and probably lots of other places. But I love this idea of a shawl with Christian imagery. In fact, when I get to my knitting fantasies, I want to show you a beautiful shawl that kind of got me thinking about something like that with Christian imagery. I think that would be awesome. I love that idea. Thank you so much. Always Yarn First says, it makes me so happy every time I see the Arkansas mug. That was designed by my friend Lori, the owner and dyer of Arkansas Yarn Company, for the Yarn Crawl last year. Now I wish I knew who Tara was so I can add another fellow fiber friend. Okay, Always Yarn First and Yarn Chicken and stuff. You guys need to get together. I don't know, comment on each other's thing or whatever, because Tara's the one who gave me that mug. I had no idea though that it was designed by an owner of a yarn company and a dyer. How cool. Love it. Love, love, love it. But you two need to get together because maybe you live near each other. Dilly Dahlia said, regarding knitting a sweater on DPNs, the Coast Salish tribes on Vancouver Island knit their traditional and beautiful Cowichan sweaters using all DPNs. Years ago, I saw an incredible YouTube documentary called The Story of the Coast Salish Knitters. Sadly, the video is no longer available, but there are other shorter videos that come up when you do a search. That is super interesting. I feel like it would be very easy to do. You would just need double points long enough. If you had like 18-inch double pointed needles. And that brings me to Ann Pinkova's comment. This is a great comment. Thank you so much, Ann. She says, Shetland knitters, which is different. Shetland, I think, is an island off the coast of England. And the one mentioned by Dilly Dahlia is on Vancouver Island, which is in Canada, right? Ann says, Shetland knitters, it's like if you live on an island with a lot of sheep, you've got to use really long DPNs. They tend to use super long DPNs, and then they brace one end on a leather pouch they wear on a belt. Apparently, it helps with speed and wrist stress. The fastest knitter in the world uses this method. I actually got a set at a yarn festival, but I haven't tried them yet. Would you send me a picture, Anne? I would love to see a picture of those. I guess I could Google it too. But that is interesting. I would love to try that. Just as regular circular knitting with long DPNs. Interesting. I wonder how it's better than using a circular needle, except for the bracing. The bracing, you know, on your waist where that leather thing would be. Maybe that's what makes it a little bit faster. Cool. Thank you so much for all of your wonderful, wonderful comments. I read them all and I really, really appreciate them. I wish I could read them all on the podcast because they are so, so good. All right, knitting fantasies. I just have one pick today. And the reason is because I liked this one enough for it to stand alone. It is called Artists by Nastasia Hornby, and she is a Dutch knitter who lives in Amsterdam. She also goes by Moonstruck Knits. And I saw this and I thought, you know, she is a very careful designer. I have followed her here and there over time, and she designs very thoughtfully. I've never knit one of her patterns, but she does have several that are mosaic knitting, and that is what this shawl is. It is a mosaic pattern. If you're not familiar, stranded knitting is colorwork knitting where you are holding more than one strand in whichever hand you hold your yarn in, and you are alternating between those two strands in some kind of a pattern. But mosaic knitting creates colorwork by knitting one color through the entire row and just slipping the stitches from a previous row to create colorwork. When I look at this, I would have said without a doubt that it was stranded knitting, but it is not. It is mosaic knitting and it is 5 colors. Love it. I think it is just awesome. She has it in sport weight yarn, but I really feel that you could use whatever weight you wanted. Obviously within reason. Like you could use fingering weight if you wanted. You could use a DK if you wanted. It's pretty thick as a sport weight. If it were me, I probably wouldn't go over sport, but you could definitely work this in fingering weight yarn and just go down a needle size or 2. But this is what she said about it on Ravelry, and her patterns might be available elsewhere too. I don't know, but I found this one on Ravelry. It says, Artists is not a delicate sheer layering piece. Instead, it's a substantial wrap with a distinct presence. I thought that was really well put. It stands out and adds character to any outfit while keeping you warm and cozy. It's both eye-catching and functional, a true statement piece. Artists is a triangular shawl that is worked top down from the center out, starting with a classic garter tab cast on. That's what I would expect. The shawl features narrow bands of 1x1 color created using the stranded technique. Wait a minute. Everywhere else, it said that it was mosaic. I didn't realize it did have some stranded knitting in there. It does. So I guess the 1x1 does use the stranded, but it says the eye-catching border of the shawl is worked using the mosaic technique, holding only one strand at a time. Okay, I didn't read carefully. So it uses both. It uses both stranded and mosaic, but that border part that I would have said was stranded is mosaic. So that's a really cool pattern. It's $9, but I feel that a pattern by this particular designer is worth $9. She's a very careful, thoughtful designer. Okay, so here's what happened. This story comes to us from Pam. She says, my name is Pam, and I am the host of the podcast, Stitches and Prayers, here on YouTube. So if you do not watch this podcast, go check it out. Again, Stitches and Prayers, I will link it below. Pam says, back in October of 2021, I lost my mom to COVID. In the belongings that I received of hers was a beautiful sweater with some lace detail on the dolman sleeves, and I just loved the fit. Fast forward to this past January when I first found your podcast and you were showing off your newest design, the Vesper sweater. I was in love and downloaded the pattern as soon as it was released, but for some reason didn't cast it on for a few months, which is the end of July. You designed the sweater using fingering weight yarn and using 2.75 and 3.25 millimeter needles. The yarn I decided to use was worsted, Knitology worsted, in the 2 lightest of the Dune colorway and the Karen latte cakes in cream for the mohair. And I don't like needles that small. Now, most knitters know that you should always make a swatch, but I couldn't be bothered. So I took my worsted weight yarn and 5 millimeter needles and went to work thinking that if I made the smallest size, it would be perfect. Continuing to think that it would be the perfect size, I didn't try it on till I was done with the body and one arm. Oh man, here is a picture. She says, nope, it was huge. So I had to re-knit the sweater. Still in my worsted weight yarn, still in the smallest size, but I did change the needle size to a 3.25 millimeter, but still didn't swatch. I have cast it off, but I need to add a little more length to the body and the sleeves. Moral of the story, always use the suggested needle size the designer suggests. LOL, I still won't swatch. I get it, swatching's annoying, and I often don't swatch either. And you can make changes to the weight of the yarn and to the needle size and to the gauge, but I definitely recommend doing the math. You have to figure out, and it's just a multiplication problem, to figure out how large it's going to be. So if you're going to make a drastic change, like fingering weight to worsted weight, 2.75 and 3.25 up to 5 millimeter, maybe do the math. Poor Pam. Oh, that's so sweet. She says, I love your podcast. I work overnights and can't seem to go to sleep on Sundays until after I watch your podcast. I am so glad, Pam. Thank you so much for that wonderful story and that wonderful lesson in swatching. But I get it. We've all been there. And, you know, if you're using like a superwash yarn, especially in my early days of knitting, I would make the sweater that I love the way it fit out of superwash yarn, and then I would block it and it would be like gigantic. So superwash yarn does grow a lot in blocking. Alpaca grows a lot in blocking. So you just kind of have to know that going in. I do have a queue of knitting stories, but we are eating through those stories with every week that goes by. So if you have a knitting story, email it to me. You can type it out. You could take a video. You can send in an audio recording. I would love to share your story on the podcast. If anything knitting related has happened to you that is funny or ridiculous or heartbreaking or tragic, or anything that you would like to share to contribute to our oral tradition here in the knitting world, that would be amazing. Devin at KnittyMcPurly.com. Devin with an I. Send it to me. You guys, I will see you here next week. Hopefully Gigi will be back. Gigi, I actually did the last bit of packing up the advent calendars because Gigi has been bombarded with school projects. As if learning like geography and history is nearly as important as crocheting. I mean, come on. So hopefully, you know, with the holidays coming up, maybe she'll have more time to crochet and she will be back, I hope. Have a wonderful week. I will see you next Sunday. Bye, knitters.